Hello, it's November 10th, and here in beautiful British Columbia on Vancouver Island, the big gray woolly blanket is pulled up over our heads and it plans to stay there pretty much until the spring. That is our reality here on the West Coast. It's kind of beautiful once you get used to it and reframe it as a cozy wool blanket. So there you go. I'm here today to talk to you about money. Talking about money can be awkward in a relationship at the best of times. However, when money is the source of conflict, it can be devastating to try to talk about it. So I want to give you some tips on how to be your own personal conflict resolution champion. 3 topics I'm going to cover. First of all, of course, is talking about money. Secondly, I want to talk to you about the importance of being on the same page. And thirdly, goal setting. There's some powerful information in here, so I really hope you stick with me. Thank you all for joining. I am Patricia Lalonde. I'm a family mediator on the British Columbia roster of mediators. And I have an unusual background. My background is in finance. I was among the earliest certified financial planners in Canada, and I spent many years talking to people about their money, helping them plan, selling them investments and insurance to complete those plans. So sitting around kitchen tables, I learned a lot about how people feel about their money and how they communicate about it. My goal as a family mediator is to help families stay out of court. I want to thank Mediate BC for putting on this virtual expo. This week we're here to raise public awareness about the options for conflict resolution and the different collaborative processes. Mediate BC is a not-for-profit organization that helps to facilitate and bring people together for mediation and other processes. The Eventbrite page or the Facebook page of Mediate BC will bring you to many other presentations that have been done on various topics through Mediate BC and throughout this week. Today is the last day of the virtual expo. We have more presentations live to come, but at the moment, this is the second last, I believe. I want you also to know that the opinions and ideas that I express are mine, not necessarily those of Mediate BC. So, for starters, talking about money. I come from Ontario, and coming out here to BC, I've learned so many things from our Indigenous brothers and sisters. And one of those things is the tradition of the talking stick, and I have my very own talking stick. A talking stick tradition isn't about the stick. You can use any token that you want. What that is about is the opportunity that the person who's holding the stick or the token is the one who speaks. And the rest of the people in the room give the respect of hearing that person. Powerful. And what, may you say, has that got to do with money? Well, it's very much about talking and being heard. One of the things that I've learned of many is the multi-generational aspect of money values. I would have grown up, I did grow up, with my own ideas about money, its values, how we manage it, how we don't manage it. The thing is that those realities, in spite of what my family might have looked like, it goes back generations. Sometimes the multi-generational aspect of those values we're not even aware of. Our families, our parents might have overcome the struggles of the past and found their own success. But still, families that went through the Depression, our ancestors, our grandparents, our ancestors, and those before that, they came from a tradition of either success or some measure of it, or a lack. If you come from a family who's been fairly successful and comfortable for generations, it's hard to understand someone else's point of view. People believe that their values are shared by everyone, and it isn't necessarily so. Another family who comes from maybe a geopolitical situation where they suffered, and that could be 4 generations ago, it could be many generations ago, but sitting around the kitchen table, that family learns ways to feel either secure or insecure, ways about being frugal or being a spendthrift. It's really hard to know. So what I often see is that a situation where a couple is in dispute, and for many years they have disagreed. One thinks the other is a spendthrift, and the other thinks the first one is way too stingy. Where does that come from? Talk about it. Seriously, I'm going to give you a homework list. And the first thing on that homework list, if you do nothing else, is to sit down and either write your own notes, depending on how best you learn, talk to your family members, understand your own family of origin, your own multi-generational geopolitical background, and where some of those things might come from. Because these are entrenched ideas that it's hard to talk about until you open that door and see, that's where that came from. It isn't necessarily the only way to think about money, because there are lots of ways to think about money, to plan for money, and to discuss it. So understanding yourself is the first thing, understanding your partner, the person you're in relationship with, and that can be, certainly your life partner, your children, your parents, but it can also be a business partner. That is sometimes that gets really ugly when there's a misunderstanding around these issues. So digging up these entrenched ideas and understanding where they come from is really important. I just want to give you one example of an experience I had not too long ago, where there was a family of adult siblings and their partners, their spouses, had been struggling for, almost a decade over settling the estate of the parents. And wow, it was really, really tough. Everybody thought, they were confused, they were frustrated, they wanted to move on. They wanted to also respect the parents who had passed away and what they had provided for their family. So in this situation, I met in mediation, but in pre-mediation, I met and spoke with each of the persons, and they provided me with the financial information, because that's what I do, is mix mediation and financial background together. So in pre-mediation, we got all of that really clear. And then all of us sat down at the table one day to work it out, because their next step was going to be court, and they really didn't want to drag the family issue that way. So we sat down, and 4 hours of emotional dialogue, financial dialogue. It was challenging. And at the end of 4 hours, they resolved it. What a nice story. There were hugs and happiness and everything. But the thing that really became clear in that situation was the fact that the one holdout, the one spouse, came, of course, from a different background and did not share those deeply entrenched values. Didn't have any idea why that one individual was so opposed. But when that conversation opened up and they were able to share those thoughts, it was like magic. I was so happy for them. And of course, they were pretty happy. They've moved on and moved forward with their plans and their lives. So that's number one. Unearth those multi-generational, geopolitical, entrenched ideas and have an open discussion about it. My second point that I promised to talk about was about being on the same page. Now, when I came to be a mediator, first I was a financial specialist in collaborative practice, and now I'm a family mediator, and I love this role. It suits me to a T. So what I could see clearly from the beginning was that in mediation, in family disputes, so often each of the persons, each of the people in the relationship would go to a separate lawyer. You know, that's the way it was always done, right? And of course, the lawyer wants to know the situation. What you ended up with was two people and their lawyers each creating a financial document. Well, more often than not, those financial documents were different, which led to accusations of lying, cheating, hiding, etc., and on it goes, and off they went to court. It's an ugly mess. So I created a financial document, pretty straightforward for me. I, love doing Sudoku puzzles. So creating a financial document that we could work with was a no-brainer. And I just want to share one of the couples that I met with, and this is several years ago now. I met with them individually. They brought me all their paperwork. I created, and I told them that what we were going to do was create one financial document. When we came together in the room, all three of us, we started going through that financial document. And as we went through it, line by line, yes, everybody agrees on this, and no, I don't understand that. And we would talk about the rules that would apply and got it all cleared up. One of the things that had happened in this relationship was way back at the beginning of the relationship, one of the persons decided that they would take care of the details, and the other was very happy about that. These are very intelligent, professional, successful people. So the other was quite happy not to have to take care of those details. Unfortunately, when people are successful, they often become targets for those other people who are selling financial products that supposedly will save them a lot of tax and make them a lot of money and lots of promises. But what an uninformed person doesn't know is all of the pitfalls, all the negativities, all of the small print stuff. So the other person in this relationship would often buy into those things without discussing it with the one who was taking care of the details. And it got them into some trouble. As you can imagine, the arguments, the disagreements would just flare up. And this went on for 40 years. For the most part of 40 years, it would come and go. So by the time they came to me, they felt that it was such a mess that they had no way to overcome it other than separating. But when we went through the financial documents and figured out ways to resolve the different issues, to sell the investments or the products, and how best to deal with the taxes and understanding how they got into this, they both said, oh my gosh, if we had known this at the beginning, if we had understood this stuff at the beginning, we wouldn't be in this situation. There were tears, remorse, apologies, forgiveness, hugs, and you know what? They reconciled. I was so happy for them. And just recently, they contacted me to tell me that they were still together, that things were good, and they were so grateful that we actually resolved all of that stuff. The alternative would have been tragic if they had been creating two separate financial documents and nobody explained it to them. So I really believe strongly in this. On the other side, we more often hear the drama of that tragic stories, and I was involved in one of those tragic stories, as the professional. And this couple had been, again, through court back and forth, firing lawyers, hiring lawyers, a real financial mess. And I was asked if I could sort it out because, they just couldn't figure out the financial part of it. Children were involved, and by the time I saw them, the children were older teenagers, and the family relationship had dissolved. The client that I saw no longer had contact with his children, and it was tragic. So I agreed to take it on, and lo and behold, I found myself with 13 dusty boxes full of paperwork. And it was a challenge, but it was exciting. And as I went through those boxes of paperwork, the stories started to unfold. Stories in numbers and transactions and history. And so I put it together in this spreadsheet and condensed those 13 boxes into a nice, lovely, tidy spreadsheet. And that spreadsheet showed the story of where things came from, where the money went, why it went, how it went, et cetera, et cetera. Something that everyone could see. And it wasn't magic. It was just hard work and clear. But the client and the lawyer brought this to court. Everyone could see clearly what had happened, and the case was ended. That's the Coles Notes version. So as I say, having one financial document is, when money is the issue, it's so valuable, and often, usually there are other issues, but sometimes money is the main issue in a separation. So having one financial document, in my experience, really, really does help. So whether you're in a relationship or dissolving a relationship, being on the same page, being open and honest with each other and communicating is really important. The third topic I was mentioning is goal setting. And that sounds like, oh yeah, that's easy. No, it isn't. It's important that you do goal setting together. And I'll just share, when I was in Ontario, I had many, many, many clients. And often we would sit at the kitchen table and work out plans to achieve those goals. But the main topic was, first of all, what are your goals? What do you want to do? And one family I remember in particular, and you'll understand why, is the kids were really little. They were in diapers and crawling around on the floor and playing with their toys. And the parents worked out a plan. So that is a long time ago, gosh, probably 20 years ago that we had that conversation. And the reason it's top of mind these days is that not long ago, I went back to my small town. I was at an event. I saw the couple and they told me how grateful they were for the work they did at that time, because the kids are now in and through university, all paid for as planned. The house is paid off as planned, and they've been able to go on a European vacation every year as planned. Well, of course, anyone who knows me well enough knows that I cried. I was pretty excited to hear that story. More typically nowadays, in those days I was planning with couples to move forward. Nowadays, as a family mediator, I'm planning helping families to separate. And another couple that I worked with a few years ago, for example, they, once again, like the other 40-year couple, this couple had been together about 20 years, but we went through the financial document and answered the questions and got clear about what was going on in the relationship. And once again, they said, geez, if we had known this stuff a long time ago, things would have been a lot smoother. Anyway, in their case, they were separating for other reasons as well. And they had set a goal that they were there in mediation because they wanted to keep their family out of court, number one goal. And equally important, number one goal was to keep the kids in the center of their focus. They did not want their kids to suffer as a result of this separation, and they wanted to be respectful of them and preserve the family relationship and rebuild a family relationship, because that's what separation can be. It's about rebuilding something and forming it in a new way. The exciting part, and it doesn't often happen that people come back, and I love it when I hear about it, but this couple, once again, they stopped by my office just a while back to tell me how well they were doing, to give me a hug, which I love to see couples and, know that they're okay. The kids are doing well. They're in or through university. They're doing really well. And not only that, they get together as a family, all four of them, plus the new spouses. And they can get together to celebrate family events and annual events. Well, that is the ultimate. As I said to you at the beginning, helping families to stay out of court is my main goal in the work that I do as a family mediator. So staying out of court with those issues and keeping your kids in the center of the focus, in the center of the whole, keeping your heart there, that is so good, in my opinion. So goal setting, pulling in the same direction, whether you're together or you're dissolving a relationship, having some sense of what your goals are together is so useful. So what I've shared with you here, really brief Cole's Notes, tip of the iceberg ideas, are some ideas to help you to be your own conflict resolution champion. We talked about talking about money, and you learned about the multi-generational aspect of misunderstandings and disagreements. And I really remind you to do that homework and talk to each other so that you get some idea of the entrenched ideas that cause the conflict. So talk to each other, learn about your own past. Having one financial document, there's another piece of homework. Again, if you're in a relationship or dissolving one or having some difficulty communicating in whatever way, make sure that you're on the same page. That's really important. And then goal setting. Goal setting, whether you're at the beginning of the relationship or dissolving it, once again, pulling in the same direction, communicating with each other is so important. that would be your third piece of homework, is to write down, keep it to 3, write down your top 3 goals. So I encourage or open it up to any questions that anyone might have. And thank you all for joining in. This is wonderful. Anyone have any questions? Apparently not. I guess I was pretty clear. I want to say thank you to Mediate BC for making this possible. I also want to suggest, here's a takeaway. This little book, When Money Hurts, 10 Prescriptions for Long-Term Financial Health by Richard Hobbs. This is a book that I love to give to my clients. It's common sense. I had a little bit to do with the grass cutting, we called it, editing in the book, and it really talks of my beliefs, my experience, and particularly Richard's. He's just a person that I really respect in this field. So you can find that on my website, Patricia Lalonde, CFP, as in Certified Financial Planner.com. So that's Patricia Lalonde, CFP.com. Or you can reach me at patricialalondecfp.com. I would love to guide you through talking about money. Whatever your situation, please get in touch. And once again, this is part of Mediate BC's virtual expo on conflict resolution. So check out there'sanotherstory.com and you can hear the other broadcasts. Thank you all so much for joining in.